Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Happy to have you here. Hello, Austin. How are you doing?
Doing great, Andrew. How about yourself?
Everything's doing really well. Pretty good weekend. And before the weekend happened, I'm just giving a bit of an update to people. I spoke with Peter Bookvar, who some of you will have seen. He's on CNBC quite a bit. He's been a frequent commentator there. And he's this chief investment officer over at Bleakley Advisory Group. He also has the book report. So we did an interview and a chat that's coming up soon. So I would encourage everyone to subscribe and to hit that like button to notify them when our videos come out, because when this guy talks, I like to listen, and it's a quick, I think it's like 8 minutes long, so it's not going to take a lot of your time, but it's a great interview, and he's going to talk about inflation. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about today, about inflation as well, because it's a key topic that's on everyone's mind. And if it isn't, it should be, because it's happening. It's been happening for for decades. Let's be honest, since 2008, there's been a massive amount of inflation. It's just, how do you want to recognize it? But we'll get into that a little bit more. But before we jump into the inflation discussion, I know you had a couple companies you wanted to talk about and get some news out in regards to some of the things that are happening in the market.
Yeah, well, first and foremost is obviously Globex Data had some exciting news both at the end of last week and at the start of this week. The biggest ticket item being they've finalized a $2.2 million financing round, and this is going straight towards marketing their product Secure in the United States. Super exciting. That's a massive budget, massive amount of cash that they'll be able to inject behind that, and hopefully start to see some real subscription and revenue numbers behind that would be the goal, and that's what I would look for as well.
Yeah, it's good. To have a decent budget to get some attention on not only the stock, but on the product specifically, definitely good things. It'll just be a matter of seeing what the return on that is. But they've got some good partnerships with Reason.com, and they're getting out there. Never mind all of the relationships with telecoms that have in Mexico, South America, and parts of Asia. So they're hitting the ground running for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. And another thing that they had kind of stuck in there, it kind of slid in underneath the news of this financing round, was that it's a company called FMW Media, and they do business television programs, and they're doing a 12-part series on Globex Data and the product that they've rolled out. So that's super exciting as well. That's, I think, going to put the product and the company in front of more people again, continue to expand that potential market, open up for potential consumers to come in. So it's really exciting. They're continuing to move forward exactly kind of how we thought they would be going, especially with this US launch. So now the next big thing is going to be to see, all right, how is that revenue looking? How are those subscription numbers coming along?
Sure. And of course, people looking at it, and we look at it from both angles because we like the product and we like the stock. Is that a little bit of dilution? So you've raised a bit of money. The stock's held up. It's at I think 31 cents, so it's held up just fine. And they're hitting a lot of milestones as far as relationships and getting the product out there. Everyone's just going to be waiting to see about revenue. So it's just hitting those numbers. So like everything, they're off to the ground running, and it'll just be a matter of seeing the return on that investment. So eyes will be peeled on it. We're pretty excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And a nice little thing as well to be able to close a financing round that quickly, I think is always a very good indicator of the health and the potential for growth in a company. When you see them, they're very quickly able to get through a financing situation like this at 30 cents to pull 2.2 million together. So that's always awesome to see as well.
Well, I'd definitely like to have Alan back on to ask him about that, to see if it was something that just kind of popped up. I know that they had talked about wanting to have a good, healthy budget for marketing down the road, but I'd love to have him back on. So hopefully we'll have him on soon, ask him about that, because, maybe there's a story behind it. Maybe someone popped up and said, hey, listen, I love this. I want to help you guys get this out. So we'll have to reach out to him, and hopefully later this week or next week, we'll have him on and we'll ask him about that, and we'll get an update from him.
Yep, absolutely. I'd be looking forward to it. It's always great chatting to Elaine as well. So that would be awesome.
For sure. I just wanted to bring up GMG Graphene because this stock, a lot of stocks have been kind of flat lately. Everyone knows I love Desert Mountain Energy. It's holding at that 350 range, which is what I expected. But GMG Graphene has been one that's just been exploding. It's up 20% today alone again. So it's up just over the $2 range, which which is just, it stormed out of the gates, which is great. And I mean, I think a lot of it is you've got to get eyes on these stories and you've got to let people know what's going on. And graphene is such a wonder material. There was an article that came out in Forbes. I believe his name is Michael Taylor. And that just came out on Friday. I want to say I could be Friday or Thursday. Now, getting that kind of exposure and having someone write in the likes of Forbes and getting eyes on the graphene story, and specifically GMG graphene, I don't think that hurt one bit. So I think that would certainly have had a big push on people seeing that. And as you can see, their aluminum ion battery charges 60 times faster than lithium ion. That's a huge deal. This is groundbreaking, and there's always a time to reach retail, and I think that they're looking at 12 to 18 months before they'll have something for the retail market. But this is one of those stories where it's really exciting to see the developments that are happening at a fast pace. So we're looking forward to more news coming out of GMG graphene, and certainly the market is appreciating it.
It is for sure. It's responded well since its launch back in, it was at mid-April when the stock actually made its full IPO. And it's responded nicely. It's been ticking upwards, great trajectory, awesome news coming out of them as well. And they've got a ton of products. It's not just these aluminum ion batteries as well. There are tons of other products that they're either trialing or putting together or ready to bring to launch. So super exciting. Awesome to see a company that we like so much hitting that ground running as hard as they have.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with graphene. It is a wonder material. It's 10 years ago. It got a lot of attention of the world, but it takes time. I mean, just because you can prove up something, say in a lab, and they've got a partnership with the University of Queensland in Australia. Just because you can prove up, say, one layer of nanofilm or something like that, or one layer, you still have to make this honeycomb fiber. It's hundreds of thousands, and we're talking like graphene is 200 times smaller than a human hair. I mean, this is it's nano level. It's tiny. So it's amazing to see the going from a discovery of a technology to then how do we roll this out and how do we make it applicable for a retail customer. It takes time, but we're here and we're so close. And this is a big step in that curve towards getting batteries out that are going to be a much more efficient, much more clean and green a solution for people. And all of that adds up together because there's plenty of other companies in the clean and green space that are also flexing and putting in a lot of good work to make this electric future possible, which also it ties into some of the talk on inflation I want to talk about, because copper being such a major theme in the whole electric development in future. I'm actually going to do a little report here called the like that's the second Bronze Age, the Copper Age again, because it really is. If we're going to make this this kind of clean carbon future where we're combating carbon as being the issue, there's a lot of work to be done for that. I mean, a lot of that is political, posing
theater
to a large degree, but there's trillions of dollars being pushed into this sector. So to not participate is wrong. And we can see copper being pushed. The chart for copper looks amazing. Most commodities look amazing because, once again, and I said it 3 years ago, I'd rather get paid in a commodity than get paid in any fiat currency. I would, and even someone could say, well, I would have liked to be paid in Bitcoin. Go, well, no. I mean, even if there was more quote unquote money to be made, because anyone who quotes Bitcoin, they're quoting it back using US dollar. So they're still quoting it pegged to a fiat currency. I would rather have the materials that make everything. A Bitcoin doesn't make anything. I mean, it's a great, the ledger and the system, it's incredible. There's lots of great things, but you don't even get to make, you can't mine a Bitcoin unless you have commodities. And these commodities are going up. They're inflating in price. And a lot of times now, what happens is we don't recognize inflation, or we're told otherwise. I mean, for the last decade, housing has been I think if I take a big step back and I mention what Michael Saylor said, is that inflation affects what you want out of life. If your biggest dream is, hey, I'm happy with living with a bunch of friends and I won't own a car and I won't, I don't want to work a lot And if your expectations are a bit lower, then yeah, there's probably not a lot of inflation because a lot of technology and a lot of computer stuff is fairly cheap. It's remained fairly flat. If you say, well, I'd like to own a house one day and I live anywhere near a major city, I mean, anywhere, which is where almost all the population lives. And we can just pick Vancouver randomly. If you say, I want to live in Vancouver and own a house and have a bit of a life, maybe have a vacation, maybe, the kids can do things that they could have done back in the 50s. Well, then we're talking massive inflation. If you look at 1985, the average house was about $200,000. And I might do a big report on this as well and get a bit harder on the numbers, but you're looking closer to 1.3 million now for a house near Vancouver. Now, I mean, that dream is gone. So, I mean, and this is where a lot of the upset comes from millennials. And they say, this future is out of reach for me. How can I possibly even think of that dream? And hey, I hear the complaint because inflation helps the rich. It's just another tax by government, essentially, and it passes the money onward to those who have invested in hard assets, have been able to invest in hard assets, have been able to invest in the likes of commodities, who have the money and the wherewithal to see that playing out. It does not do well for someone who is just middle class. It doesn't. It erodes your purchasing power, and we're starting to see that effect massively in energy in the U.S. I think it was up 25. That's the major one. It's up. Inflation calculator was up 25.1 for April alone in the U.S. Food is up 2.4. So we're starting, and you know what? Funny enough, food definitely seeing. I mean, we can see food here in Vancouver. You want to go to a restaurant, you want to buy milk, you want to start buying things. Food has been increasing rapidly, and that's not going to stop. This has just begun.
No, there's no sign of it slowing down. And I mean, this is what happens when you pump, in the U.S.'s case, trillions and trillions of dollars into the economy and printing money, which in theory sounds nice. Like, yeah, let's inject a $2.2 trillion stimulus package. It's like, yeah, well, because of the actions that were taken, yes, the economy needed that sort of stimulus, but you can't just do that with no repercussions. And we're going to start to see those repercussions. We're going to start to eat those repercussions over the next few years as it becomes more prevalent and more apparent. I think going back to the point you had initially made there, to really oversimplify the point you were trying to make is we want to own the stuff that makes stuff. And copper is a great material for that. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the best, most conductive metal out there. So you're doing anything electrical, you're going to want to use copper.
Yes.
I think I'm right on
that. Well,
yeah.
graphene could be the challenger, but it's just a matter of cost for graphene. But yes, copper is the foundation for everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's reflected by its price being at a 7-year high right now. It's very prevalent that this is the route that we're going to need to approach to go forward. And tying it into the inflation thing is then saying we want to be involved in these hard assets because at least then you have a better chance of combating inflation than you do in some other sectors.
Yeah, I always I'm always cautionary about talking about the doom and gloom part because it's not gone away. And I mean, I won't spend too much time, but I'll just kind of mention this, and someone can challenge me if they like. 2008 was never resolved. It wasn't even solved. There was nothing done to fix the problems, and in fact, they just called the products. What was it? They had a neat term that they just changed the name of the products and kept on rolling forward. The government's been buying a ton of mortgages in the U.S., like massive amounts. So you essentially are going to have government ownership of businesses. They're the one who's pumping in trillions of dollars. The people that have done well by this in the last decade have been your FANG stocks because they can borrow at almost zero. They just keep on buying their own stock. Stock goes up. Everyone's happy. My argument would be in the past, you'd say inflation is the cost of goods and services for an economy in a nation. But I would say that the stock market and the economy have totally come apart. There's no dependence on each other because the stocks that are doing well are globalist stocks that don't have any necessary affiliation, really. They may not even pay taxes like an Amazon. They don't really pay any taxes in the US or very, very little. And they wouldn't even, I mean, if they had to, they would just choose a tax jurisdiction elsewhere. So they're not really tied to their economy that much because they're not paying the country of origin any tax revenue. So it's.
You're 100% right with that. I mean, you can make the same argument with a company like Apple. Like you hear people say, a great American company like Apple. It's like, oh,
yeah,
the Apple that makes all their products in China, that bases their head office in Ireland to try to avoid taxes that way. Like, I mean, come on. It's not like the local mom and pop shop or the restaurant down the street from you. You're not buying their stock on the stock market. Those are, homegrown national companies. Apple, Google, Amazon, those are not. Facebook, they're not national companies. They're globalist entities. No. That's exactly the point.
Yeah, and I mean, you could take that one step further and say they're here solely, to rape and pillage the countries they're in and move on to another one. I mean, if you are a hardcore capitalist, then that would be okay to you. So there is a lot of chaos right now, and I mean, the response by some is too far left, but there has to be change, right? Because I myself, who believe in open markets, do not agree with this capitalist type of market. And we're starting to see this pump up of money, quantitative easing, which they're saying they're not going to stop. It's going to keep on continuing. Eventually, it has to, the check has to be paid. And I don't want to go down the road as to what that looks like. There's all sorts of stuff out there that you could go lost for hours as to why are they doing this? Like in Canada, I mean, you'll never be able to pay back any of the money that's been pumped out by the Trudeau government. I mean, it's never going to happen. In the U.S. as well. I mean, we're past that any point of making sense. So does it mean it can continue? Yeah, it can, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, there's been times in the past where people looked and said these numbers don't make sense. They don't make any sense, but that's also troubling because then how do you start to value things? But we're getting to that a bit more. I just wanted to highlight it because reach out to us. Make sure you subscribe because I want you to see that Peter Bookvar chat that we had, and he lays it out for you. And he's speaking mostly about the U.S., but applies to Canada as well. And why I've been harping about it for so long is that look at commodities, and if you're not buying the commodities itself, look at the companies that are out producing, that are looking for these commodities. That's where things are going. This is where we need to be. And even if you love the innovation stuff, and even if you love all the high flying stuff, it requires all of these goods and services. And if you want to play a bit defensively, but today, which means a little bit more common sense with big growth upside, follow us and send us an email, challenge me, whatever, send me a text and let me know your thoughts. But it's an incredible time, and this shift is happening, and I think it's important for people to realize it.
Yeah, well, it's important to say that too. We're always open to have these conversations with people. There's nothing better for this space or the ideas that we're discussing than a healthy debate around it, and talking about this and finding out why someone like I got involved with you because I could listen to you and I could tell, hey, Andrew really cares about this. Andrew really sees a path forward with this. And obviously you've got experience with Merrill Lynch and everything like that, 20 years in the business to help with that. But to listen to you, really articulate these points, it goes, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Like I do want to own the stuff that makes all these things. So no, the most important thing is to have a healthy debate around this and to be open to ideas. And that's what we do. That's what we love doing, is opening ourselves to new opportunities, trying to find paths to find exciting opportunities and hopefully make everyone a little bit of money along the way.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it's like everything, whether you're talking about politics or society. And I spoke to Dr. Faber about this, is that the number one tool that anyone has, whether you're doing financial analysis, social analysis, political analysis, is history, which I would say is desperately and sorely not known by most people. You don't have to look far to see that a lot of these, we've gone through these things plenty of times. You know how they roll out. I certainly do. So when people make predictions and they say this is happening, this is occurring, they might look like a genius and think, oh my God, how did they know? And it's like, well, because I just read history. I looked at history and I looked back at it. That's your number one tool. We're human beings and we don't seem to change. I mean, we were motivated by greed and fear and we're easily manipulated. And today, more than ever, with social media and I mean, these are not dumb people. Absolutely, utterly manipulated all of the time. The levels of propaganda is absolutely incredible, and you have to keep that in mind. And it's targeting and it's message for the masses, and that's the time and the climate we live in, and you have to sort through all of that. But I just wanted to get you primed today to get the idea of inflation in your head, because not a lot of Canadians have that much savings, and how many people really have bought into like a long-term fixed mortgage? A lot of people have 5-year, and if inflation keeps on going up to even historical averages, most people will lose their house. But I'll leave it at that, because that's a really down thing to say. But hey, if you're really interested, go check out what historical mortgage rates have been in Canada, and then what they are today, and see what your payment would be with that double and triple increase.
Yeah.
So anyways, on that note, there's something you can do today, and Peter Bookfor gives the answer as well. So make sure you check out that video.
Yeah, that's a fantastic conversation. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have already seen it, but I'm going to be listening to it again, because it's just such a great chat, and you guys always are right on the head when you're talking about these things, and he's such an intelligent guy to listen to talk as well. So can't recommend that enough to people to go check that chat out.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Austin, and look forward to the rest of the week and what happens in these markets.
Always great chatting with you, Andrew. We'll chat to you later.
Bye-bye.